The journey to any kind of success in art is never linear.
How do you have that competitive advantage?
If you look at a lot of the big name DJs, I'm like I'm a little like hesitant to name names.
Hey, I go by knowledge, and I done tour the world. And the more I see, the more questions I got. But things are getting crazier. Misinformation is everywhere. So I'm on a mission to find the best minds with answers on how we fix it. It's time to drop some knowledge. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of Dangerous Knowledge. Now, usually I got authors, scientists, mathematicians, and stuff like that. But today, I got a fellow DJ. This guy blows me away because not only has he been a DJ for over 25 years, he makes over 6 figures a year. He's in the top 1% of DJs that not only makes a living, but a very good one. I get his emails and we have a lot of parallels in thinking. And I just see so much on social media that steers DJs in the wrong way, that doesn't give them accurate. It sounds good for social media, but it's not the reality of how you actually succeed in the DJ game. So this is Shammy Dee. Welcome to Dangerous Knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you, and thank you for having me on here, man.
Really hey, man, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to dive in. Let's go. I mean, you've been doing this for 25 years, man. Like, what got you into it?
Long time. So I remember I got into it because grew up in Los Angeles, and Power 106 was one of the main radio stations that was playing hip hop. So I remember being in like junior high school, and going home from school, listening to the traffic jams on the way home. And I loved the way the DJ took song A and song B and mixed it together. And the vibe never dropped, like the beats, the music never stopped. It kept going. And to me, that blend was like its own song in and of itself. And they kept doing it song after song after song. I was fascinated by how someone can do this. And this was a little after the time of gangster rap. And I was asking my mom, like, Ma, I want a DJ. And so she had seen over time, like Snoop, Dre, like all these images on MTV, all that stuff. And she's like, absolutely not. No way. Immigrant moms. So like, no way our immigrant mothers, right, are like gonna do this. It's doctor, lawyer, the typical story that most immigrant families have. So for 3 years, back and forth, Ma, let me get turntables. She's like, no, absolutely not. Let me get turntables. And in the meantime, I'm saving up my lunch money, doing chores. So I'm stacking because it's gonna happen.
As a kid of an immigrant. Yep.
Yeah. So, and finally, after like 3 years of back and forth, on the promise that it would be nothing more than a bedroom hobby, she let me get a set of turntables. And I was completely honest about, okay, fine. Nothing more than a bedroom hobby. I just wanted to get the equipment and go, right? So I made that promise to her, got my first set of decks, got like 5 records to start with. It was from a store in New York called Music Factory. So they emailed me these like old plastic Newmark turntables. I had the Techniques competition mixer and got going from there.
Amazing. So one thing kind of struck with what you said. You said you were fascinated. It almost seemed like a song inside the songs. And I remember thinking the same thing when I was young. I used to love the way DJs mix, and I always wanted to learn it. And would you say like your mixing style, has it changed over the years?
I would say because I started with underground hip hop. So mind you, for the younger DJs that might be listening, like in the 90s, mid to late 90s was like the Jiggy versus underground era. So like, I know he's kind of a taboo name to speak about now, but Puff at the time was like the shiny suits, the money, like he's the guy that really set that in motion. Hip hop was always talking about that from the beginning, right? Like it was always a flex. Like I have money, I have this. If you think back to like Sugar Hill Gang records and like people are always rapping about money, but with the advent of video, it really became something to the forefront, and there was a big divide over it, let alone the East Coast, West Coast thing, right? So I was like the Most Def, the Qualis, the Commons, like that was my lane. So I was strictly underground hip hop. And that started everything. And then as I progressed, I had to learn, and we can get into this, but I had to learn how to play more styles. Probably like you, I'm into all kinds of music. And so having that wide repertoire really helped in that regard, so that you can literally put me anywhere and I'll figure it out at any gig.
Right. And so, you said it's interesting. So what was that transition for you? Like what made you go from just loving the scene to actually getting gigs? And, and then you said how you had to sort of evolve.
Yeah. It's interesting. The journey to any kind of success in art is never linear. This is the thing about any music, especially music. It's never step 1, step 2, step 3. Like if you want to be a doctor, you got to be pre-med in college. You then have to go to med school afterwards. You do a residency. There's like a series of things you have to do, and then you become certified as a doctor, right? With entertainment, there's nothing like that. There's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of preparation that has to happen. And there's a lot of skills that have to be developed in order for you to elevate where you are to where you want to be, right? So for me, at the way my journey worked was I was strictly underground, and then people started asking me to do their parties. And I'm like, cool, I don't have the music for you. This was before
Serato,
geez. Right? So records at the time were like $6 for one single. So what you brought to your gigs was what you brought to your gigs. Like if somebody asked 80s and you only had hip hop, you're like, sorry, like you legitimately didn't have it. And it was middle of college for me when Serato dropped. And that's when I saw the power of like, yo, you can do 4 hours and do like anything you want. Fascinating. My jaw dropped at like what was possible. And so once I got Serato and I started working nightlife, especially, and doing other people's parties, I was literally forced to start buying more. I still bought records, but then I was forced to buy what was out there, that pop music at the time, because I remember in the club, there was this one club in San Diego called Onyx Room. And downstairs, it's a 2-level club. I don't know. Have you been to Gaslamp in San Diego?
Years ago. Yes.
Okay. So Onyx Room, really popular spot. The downstairs was called Thin, I believe. And so I was part of a DJ crew. We were on the radio. Another story I'm happy to get into, but that was my entry into nightlife. And we would do the opening sets from like 9 to 11:30ish. And I remember once we actually got to close it out in the back, and I played like Outcast, The Way You Move. That was really popular at the time. And I'm like, oh, this is going to hit. Yeah. I'm like, this is going to hit. And it did not hit. Like the dance floor absolutely cleared out. I was like, what? And I learned, there's other songs out there that I have to be aware of to make sure that I'm relevant to the dance floor in front of me in the moment.
Yes. And what's interesting to me, there's a few dynamics happening right now.
Yeah.
You've got festivals, which I feel like are getting bigger.
Yes.
And they're very specific. They want you to come in with your set, whatever you plan. And a lot of these guys use these USB sticks now.
Yeah.
And it's very niche. And, a lot of DJs are essentially playing a lot of the same stuff. I mean, the club guys like us, like you said, I had a very, very similar evolution. It was, your option is to get a day job, which for me, going to college was to be a banker.
Okay.
Or to keep playing music. And I was like, I'll learn to play that rock and house. And so the big step for me was I got the CDJ at the time, the 1000s, which were revolutionary. This was like
sure
2001. So here I could burn, 10 songs per CD.
Yeah.
And I could bring 20 CDs with me and I could out DJ anybody.
Yes.
So it gave me an enormous advantage and I could DJ anywhere.
Yeah.
Any party. And I grew up in a small town. So like I grew up with all country bumpkins, wannabe rappers, everybody. So like I learned country music by osmosis. I was around country people my whole life. So I knew all these songs. You know what I mean? I could repeat every lyric of all these classic country songs just because I've heard them so many times.
Hell yeah.
And now for me, some of my biggest stuff I do are country. You know what I mean?
It's country is hitting right now for sure. And that makes sense because maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but like you put out a track recently that was more country.
Yep.
Now that makes a lot more sense.
Year, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that, you can talk about the evolution of production so here you are. So this is like early 2000s.
Yeah.
You're DJing now it's 2024, almost 2025. Like that's dog years, right? I mean, a DJ. So you're like in DJ years, you're like 3,000 years old.
Yeah, basically.
You know what I mean?
I'm amazed I'm still walking. Like it's
right. And you're making a substantial income. You're making more than most people do.
Doing all right.
And you need to, and you pick and choose a lot of your gigs, I'm assuming. You're probably particular about your clientele.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So I see guys on social media always saying, hey, this is what you do. This is what you do. Is you're clearly doing something different and it's working. Do you see what do you think is what you do different from the typical guy? How do you have that competitive advantage? What is it about what you're doing?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think I can't say like I'm doing this one specific thing. I think you and I, because we've been at this for a minute, we have the benefit of time on our side. So I never really understood until probably the last few years that everybody thinks about compound interest for money. And that over a long period of time, you put in money, you make money from interest, and you don't spend that money, right? Over time, it grows. I think the same thing happens with careers. You do a really good job. Yeah. You do a really good job.
Yeah.
Over time, your reputation will build and people talk. So case in point, when the pandemic hit, a lot of us shifted virtual, as did I, right? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten the pleasure of being able to work for a lot of online coaches in the space, big coaches, like Rachel Rogers, who's a business coach to particularly women of color. She's amazing. I've got to work with Dan Martell, is one of my clients, SaaS Academy. And I also got to work with Chris Doe of The Future. Now, the thing is, I didn't reach out to Chris. Chris had on Twitter, at the time Twitter, had put out an ask saying, hey, does anybody know any DJs? And somebody who had seen me at another virtual event responded to his tweet and then tagged me on it, at me on it. And I got connected in that way. And we DM'd each other and he was like, hey, you have a reputation. And I was like, oh, you don't know that, you will never know who is talking about you unless they actively tell you. So I don't know that people are spreading the word about me, right? That's all good things. You want that.
You just said something really powerful. And this is something I believe in too. And this is the mistake of social media and wanting to get the big numbers. Mm-hmm. This is why if you see my social media, I mean, I tour with some of the biggest artists in the world.
Yeah.
But yet my numbers aren't amazing. Like they're above average, but they're not incredible. But I'm also showing fantastic content that's being seen by potential people that I have no idea. I have no idea who's looking. Oh, this isn't, you know what I mean? That can just look at the quality. Whereas everybody is obsessed with metrics now of, I call them vanity metrics, right? Because
yes,
you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's useful to get some. I'm not going to take, but your goal shouldn't be just to get those numbers.
Agreed.
And that's, and this is where what you said is so powerful. And I wish young people understood the importance of your reputation. Absolutely. And going to the right people and understanding who the big players are and the ones that decide. Like I DJ'd for Flow Rider and Ice Cube this year.
Congrats. That's huge.
Yeah. And the guy, the owner of the company, he's actually coming to Vegas, and I said, I'm taking you out for dinner tomorrow. You don't have a choice. Like you're coming to my town. I'm taking you out. He's a really great guy, really, really fantastic guy. And, so it's easy, but that's what's so important that I think is lost on social media, this obsession with constant numbers. And I think you just put out an email. Was it today or yesterday talking about social media, right?
Today.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, tell us what are your thoughts on this?
I have I'm realizing as I'm answering your questions that they're long answers because there's so much attached to it, but there's so much that goes into it that I think DJs that are giving hot takes on social media that have only been DJing for a couple years, there's so much context that they've missed because they haven't been in the game. They don't know the nuances. Granted, they may be giving advice based on their experience, which is totally valid at the same time. I've seen a lot of people have success through social media that are young DJs, but these DJs also understand the power behind social media. But to circle back to your question about it, there's so much involved in it that people don't understand. So to your point, vanity metrics. When we're just getting in or getting started and like, I need to grow my following, we think that having 50,000 people will change our lives. It could. I'm not saying it can't, but 50,000 people that really partially engage with you and don't live in your hometown or don't have a lot of events going on, it's not really going to do much for your bottom line at the end.
I was just going to say, so it comes down to effort versus, and sometimes getting those huge, like I have the one video that I've had go viral was, a mix that I do for Britney Spears. And that was at the time of her trial and Free Britney.
Yeah.
So that went, ultra crazy viral. And then, but also went like this, and then it went down. So like, did I get some value? Sure. But, to the point, I think the important thing to recognize is it's a little overrated, or the numbers are overrated, and you're better off focusing on quality content.
Yes.
And using it to network in real life. And I think to be successful off social media, another mistake that I see beginner DJs make is they model themselves after the really big names. And what they have to understand is that's highly unlikely to be attainable. And that path is not very financially stable at all.
At all.
You know what I mean? So like here I do Ice Cube, but I also do corporate events.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do it. I do weddings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's for a younger guy hard to recognize the importance of.
Yeah,
right?
I think I've thought about this for a while, and I'm glad I can like talk about this.
Sure.
There are two lanes for DJs. Really, only two lanes, maybe three. One is what I call the career DJ. That's what we do. We DJ parties, we do events, corporate events, weddings, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, tours in some cases, right? Then there is the artist DJ. That's your David Guetta's, Calvin Harris's, Tiesto, like even if you want to say like a DJ Mustard, for example, because he'll do club nights, things like that. So there's that lane. You could argue there's a third lane, which is like the streamers that are online and making money. Totally valid. A lot of people have had success and have made a lot of money that way. So I guess you can expand that to three. But before the streaming, there were these two lanes. And I think, I don't know about you, but when I got into it, my dreams were like doing the big festivals and being like the artist DJ.
Right.
But if we're not going to work a job, like you got to pay bills. If your dreams aren't going to fuel your rent, right?
What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of those guys that make it in the music industry in general, there's a lot of money behind them.
Yes.
People don't see that. People don't realize, Taylor Swift came from a family of money. That's not to take away from her.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Kid Rock. There's a great channel on TikTok. I can't remember the name, but the guy, he's a bitter rocker, man. Like such a mediocre guy himself, but he talks about these rappers and their backstories, right? Like people just have an enormous advantage that they don't properly talk about.
Totally.
And it's usually money. Sometimes it's connections.
Yes.
Occasionally they're at the right place at the right time, but more often than not, it's that.
So okay, you said something. One, like connections, money. If you look at a lot of the big name DJs, I'm a little like hesitant to name names because people might be like, well, don't be a bigger DJ, right? But if you really study the backstory or just learn a little bit more, their parents may have been in the business, or like you said, they come from a family of money. This is not, because he's talked about this. So like Steve Aoki's dad owned Benihana, right? Exactly. And so he was trying to distance himself from that and like make it on his own without it. But I mean, it doesn't hurt. right?
No, I'm
So
sure there's some critical connections and money that
yeah,
were involved in that. But he also placed himself at the right place at the right time with that documentary was excellent, showing how he made that transition
yeah,
from like punk music. So very, very smart. So I do give him a lot of credit for being a very smart guy.
absolutely. Can't take that away from him at
And
all.
I'll say one more thing about Steve Aoki. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
got to bring this in.
Hit me.
Chris used to get a lot of hate for his showmanship, including myself, and I totally 180'd on that. I give him so much respect and credit for that now.
Yes.
I really see the genius in what he did.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry,
You got to
continue.
entertain. You got to entertain.
You do.
But you also said like right place at the right time. So earlier on, you were like, like what's the secret? My whole career lies on this mantra. You live and die by your last gig. So
Yes.
the way that I've been able to succeed, I don't have connections. Please, my mom is an immigrant. My mom is Iranian. My dad's Ethiopian. Like they're not
Really?
from here. Who are they connected to?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So everything that I've gotten has been just sheer willpower. And then at a certain point, people help out. Right. I just got really, really good at what I do. And I feel like this was like, there was no Scratch Academy, right? There was no school.
Mm-hmm.
We figured it out. It took me like 3 months of massive frustration to learn how to do the crab scratch. And I remember just getting so
I remember me too.
yeah, it took forever.
There's no YouTube to learn this stuff, right? You're just like, you literally have to read about it. And it's like, start with the fader open. You're like, okay, I think I'm doing it. And you can't even like, there's no reference.
There's zero reference. The closest thing we had were like those VHS tapes by Invisible Scratch Pickles. You remember those? Yeah. So I used to work at a record store and I remember putting that in there and like just watching like, okay, cool. That sounds cool. How do you put this together? And then like the Scratch documentary came out and like was looking at that and how are they doing this? And what is this all about? Like was just all encompassing. And hours upon hours upon hours in my bedroom after school, slowly buying records from mail order catalogs, coming in and figuring it out. How does this work? How does that work? It wasn't until college that I learned the whole EQ thing for transitions. And that was because the crew that I was with, the main guy was like, oh, Shammy, you should do this. And I was like, oh, makes a lot of sense, right? Mm-hmm. There was nothing, it was trial and error or someone nice saying, hey, do this. But then the thing is you get feedback from people. So it's good that I cleared out dance floors when I was younger because I instantly learned that didn't work. And I had to figure out, okay, we have to get this song. What about this transition? What about that transition? Maybe this song goes after. And just from volume more than anything taught me so much about how to put program sets and also how to read the crowd and not just play the right music, but like take them on a whole journey. My early philosophy was like, it's a roller coaster. I want to bring people up.
Dude, I use the same analogy. Crazy.
Yeah.
I use the same analogy. I'm like,
you're counterpart.
And here's what I tell these young people that want to do like festivals. I'm like, the best way to learn is like you said, a club or even a pub where you get this instant feedback. Because the best part is if you want to think of yourself as an artist, awesome, because when I do the concerts, I can put on a crazy show, but it's because I've learned from the ground up.
Yes,
I know these filler songs, and when I went to Europe to do these tours, I would really be keen to talk to other DJs in these countries. Like, what are the songs I need to know? And then and also like even fans. In like when I was in Italy, I got to know the guy who's like the head of the Backstreet Boys fan group in Italy. This guy, awesomest dude, was true story. He became my cameraman for my show.
Oh, so dope.
Yeah, and he gave me clutch inside information. So we're playing in Bologna, Italy. He's like, dude, so the Backstreet Boys sort of group that was big like them 20 years ago, they're from Bologna. And I'm like, cool, what was their song? So he gives me their song. He's like, this is their song. So at the end of the show, I'm like, I'm all done. Hey, guys, I had a great time. I got this brand new song. I don't know. Should I play it? They're like, yeah, play it. And it's, of course, the song.
Right. It goes on.
The crowd loses its mind.
I love it.
Here's the kicker. The lead singer was in the audience.
No way.
Yep. Yep.
Amazing.
It's still big in Italy now. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Same thing happened in Poland.
Really?
Yep.
See, it's that kind of but it's that kind of foresight you can only get by actually doing things.
You got it. It's
Actually
like
being
social psychology.
Yeah, you understand, what do I want to do? How do I want to finish it? Where do I want to take them?
Right.
And then you can think ahead and do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because you're not going to have that knowledge unless you like really dig into Italian
and
pop
the ability to take trial and error and to make mistakes.
Yeah. And you have to be, it's scary to do, especially on such a large platform like that, but you have to be willing to take the risk at the same time. It could have not gone well, but
I have crashed and burned. Not so much of these big audiences because I've practiced so much.
Bingo.
Right? But
Bingo.
I've taken huge risks, man. I'm like, oh boy, I hope this works. I'm over 25,000 people right now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, it usually goes great. And it's this social psychology that I've learned, which is such a critical part of my DJ show to this day.
Absolutely. Can I share with you a bomb story?
Love to.
Oh my gosh. This was like maybe 2 Christmases ago. It was a holiday party.
Okay.
And it was for a bank, and they had a bigger venue every time. So I think there was maybe 400 to 500 people, maybe a little bit more. Okay. And doing my thing, crowd's turning up, it's going great. A lady comes up to me and she requests Arabic music.
Okay.
And I'm okay with requests, actually.
Right, me too.
I think they have a place, and I think they can actually save you if you find that your set isn't working. But
I love that. Yeah. We should dive into that, but continue.
Yeah, let's get into that. So I like find the right time to do it, drop it, the crowd clears. And to top it off, she wasn't even in the room. I was like, oh my God. Okay.
Right.
And for a good 90 minutes, they were not on the dance floor. Maybe not that long, because they were dancing at that point. So it was at a good amount of time, at least 45 minutes. And I'm like, how am I going to put this together? Scary, because you also want to deliver for your client.
You know that you're going to get paid that night, but like you said, you're only as good as your last gig. So they're going to have second thoughts about bringing you the next year. They're like, yeah.
But I got him back. It took a second. It took a long second.
A lot of seconds.
But they came back and we ended on a bang. So it worked out. But like, man, was I put to the test that night. And so one thing I learned, here's a tip for any DJ watching. Like, our job is one of the few jobs where people feel they have liberty to tell us how to run it. Mm-hmm. But we have the experience. I'm not going to go to a doctor's office and say, my elbow hurts, bro. You're going to need to take a scapula to my knee. And,
it's brilliant.
That's not how it works. But what we can do, because people are always going to request, like, I think every DJ should go into any event knowing that someone's going to come up to you and ask something. So what I say is, sure, I'll take your request. They give me the song and I'll say, great. I'll see if I can get to it. Or like, I'll try to get to it. And I just leave it at that. And they'll come back and I'll say, I'll try. I'm sorry. I'll try. And just kind of let it go. Only once did like somebody get really irate. It was these young kids at a New Year's party where they literally stood in front of the booth and like gave me the finger for not playing the song. So I said, okay, is this the game we're playing? Great. So as they started to leave, and as soon as they got to the door, I played their song and they got super upset about it. But I was like, listen, let's not play stupid games here. But we need to be, what I've learned over time was that I need to be judicious in how I handle requests. Maybe a song will work, or I can bank that request for later. And let's say if I'm playing something and the vibe is starting to die down, I'll get on the mic and I'll be like, yo, here's a special request. Shout out to that group over there. Drop the song and they'll get excited, which picks up the energy in the room. That excitement is contagious. So then a few people from that table start coming out. That table and then the crowd slowly fills out. So you
made a very good point there. Yeah. And I was going to say my take on requests is that. So again, social psychology. So for any young DJs or anyone that hates on requests, this is how I do it. So if someone comes up to me, they're like, hey, did you request? I'm like, maybe, as long as it doesn't suck.
That's a good one too.
Like that. You kind of playfully do that, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of set it up like you put the ball and you put the pressure on them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So now they're a little on edge. I'm like, but I got a little smirk. I'm like, I'm playing around with them. I'm like, okay, let's see, what's your song? I'm like, and a lot of, I would say, honestly, 8 times out of 10, it's a good request, and I'm gonna play it. I'm either gonna play it anyway. Or I'm like, actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I still play with them. I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna play it, but when I do, you better get all your friends, jump up and down, and start doing this to the DJ booth when I do it.
Yes,
that's get everybody going.
Yeah,
if you do. I'm gonna play it right now. Get your friends. And I will literally cut the music. I'm like, hold on. Oh, we got a request right now, ladies and gentlemen. I got, Brienne. She wants to hear, boom. So I put her on the spot. And 9 times out of 10, it goes great.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they love it. They're having a great time with it. And I'm having a great time with it.
Yeah.
Right? And like you said, the energy's contagious. And then it gets everybody going and everyone has a good time. Yeah. So, for all these guys that hate doing requests, I would say, like I said, 8 times out of 10, the request is actually pretty good.
Yeah, so, you're missing out on an opportunity, and you're missing out.
Totally, I think, and they love you.
Yeah,
they love you.
Just gonna say, you can. It's also a way to connect with your crowd.
Totally,
and huge. I wanted to say also, I love the way you're framing it, social psychology, because you're right. Yeah. It is exactly that. Right. And it's. People make requests, and whenever I drop a request, the first thing I do is look for them, and I'll point at them, and I'll nod, right? Or if it picks up, I'll just be like, yo, you know what's up?
Great idea,
Juice. Who doesn't love to get shout outs from the DJ, right?
Exactly.
Or get recognized. And so don't sleep on the possibility of what requests can do to your set.
Totally.
I would say that. I'm loving this. We can talk about anything, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
This is so good.
I don't know, like, where you think DJ is going. So, like, let's be honest, right? Anyone can DJ now.
Yes.
Let's be real. Yeah. There's now software that will mix for you.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's been beat sync forever and a day. Yeah. Right? And now we're getting to the point where AI can DJ. Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Where do you think this is all going? What about, and clubs are, I don't know, like, do you do clubs or do you just do private events?
Not so much clubs anymore. It's more private events.
I still do a lot of clubs.
You still do?
Yeah, a lot. Most of my clients are clubs. I'll do like a couple big concerts a year, and then what'll be great at that, I can usually do like after parties, pre-parties, and all that. But like clubs they're starting to decline.
Yes, they are.
Country was probably half of my clubs this year.
Oh wow.
Country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Country's still strong.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You said okay. But I think there's a general decline happening. Are you seeing that on the private end, or what would you say business is getting bigger now for you?
Since the pandemic, I think it's just been on an upslope. So I think things, if not like back to where it was, it's getting very, very close to that. But in regards to where DJ is going, the AI thing brings up very interesting questions for us. I think the main thing is, will it replace DJs? There's a couple things to look at when it comes to technology and DJing. Let's start with AI. Will it replace us as DJs? I doubt it. Definitely not anytime soon, because people don't want to know that a robot is handling their set list.
I think you're right.
Right?
I think clubs have tried. I've seen places that try having a playlist. They just don't want to dance to it. You're right.
No, because it's like we as DJs replaced live musicians for a lot of events, right? But it was still a person that was making that replacement. Mm-hmm. A robot, I think if a club was to bring in an actual robot, let's say, and have the robot DJ a set, it might make noise for a little bit because of the novelty around it. But over time, the robot can't read a room. The robot can't take a request in. The robot will play a track, and if a song is empty, or if the dance floor is emptying out, a robot isn't going to know, I need to drop this other heater, right? Like,
how to talk, right? Yeah. Who's going to put their hands up when the robot's like, everybody get your hand,
it'll be weird. People are going to feel like funny about it. Like, I'm showing love to AI. Like, what's going on?
Right.
It's not, I don't think it misses the human element. And that's what's always going to be important for any kind of art form.
And there's other avenues too, right?
Absolutely.
So do you do corporate events? Mm-hmm. Is that your primary?
Yes. Retail.
Retail
weddings.
stores?
Yes. Like
Oh,
Nordstrom, a Bloomingdale's. I've been working for those stores for over a decade now.
oh, wow.
Yeah. So they've been great clients. Then other stores like coming up, like Puma used to have a lot of DJs at one time. My boy used to book for Adidas. I would DJ for them. This was me. This was when I was coming up. So I don't know if those stores are doing stuff now anymore. But for a minute, like it was the hot thing to do, and it was great. And I also think
now.
Sorry,
Do you do gyms at all?
I did. Cool story.
Okay.
I was signing up to a boxing gym after college, and
Okay.
I've always wanted to box. Never did it growing up.
Okay.
And finally, when I graduated, I was like, let me see what's up. So I talked with the sales guy. I'm like going through the process, and he's chatting me up a bit. And he's like, what do you do? I said, I DJ. He goes, really? We've been looking for a DJ. I said, yeah. He goes, I'll strike you a deal. I'll give you free membership and 10 personal training sessions per month if you just DJ our class every week. I was like, where's the paperwork? Let's go.
Nice.
So I got into boxing big time, like had a fight, won the fight. It was great.
No way.
Yeah. So I'm 1-0, undefeated. So
that's awesome. Because this is where, I got into music production, especially over COVID. I was lucky enough to get a job just before COVID where I was doing music for a special kind of headphone. Nice. So like I'd already been doing production, but I really obviously I had all day, right? So I'm diving deep into production. And even now, so it's funny because I used to box and I still have a lot of friends in boxing world.
Yeah.
And I'm big into health and fitness. So for 2025, I'm going big with I'm making some fitness challenges with my music. Like this is one of them. It's called the Can't Stop Me Challenge. Do you know who David Goggins is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I made a song and I sample his voice. You know, the Who's Gonna Carry the Boats and the Logs?
Yes.
So I took that and I put it into a house track.
Fire, dude.
Yeah. And then I have another song. So here I am opening for Ice Cube. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do something crazy. I decided I'm going to rap. So I make a rap. And guess what? It totally resonates with my boxer and MMA friends. So now I'm doing Inner Animal. The song's called Inner Animal.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the Inner Animal Challenge. And my boxing and MMA friends are loving it. Like I'm launching it next month. Right. So right now I'm just preparing for everything for it. But yeah, that's my goal is to and this is where, I wanted to talk about these emerging, I read one of the most impactful books I've ever read is by an economist. And the book's called Blue Ocean Strategy. So what that's is about, do you know the book?
I know, I haven't read it, but I know of the book.
The idea behind it's the most important thing, which is, you take any type of market. And if it's been around for a long time, like clubs have been around for decades, it gets super competitive as the technology makes everybody can DJ. You've got to find different avenues and lanes that other people don't see. So the whole idea was, I'm like, I love fitness. So my goal for 2025 is to combine my fitness with my music, and so I'm really hoping that, I can make this take off. So I'm looking for, I'm tapping all my celebrity friends. Hey man, you got, I'm happy to give you the songs and the playlist and everything else. You know what I mean? So that's really what I see the future as DJs is we've got to really see these opportunities to grow where other people, where I think we need the human touch we talked about.
Totally. I think the second part to tech, first of all, super dope. I love how creative you are in thinking
Thanks, man.
of how to branch out because you have to nowadays, right? The other thing around technology, the fact that technology has democratized the ability for DJs to get into the game. It's a twofold thing. One, I think it's wonderful that anybody can get in and you don't need to drop $2,500 just on a set of decks and mixers and some headphones and records, right?
Sure.
Like if I could have done that for $250 coming in for a little Rev 1 controller, totally different game. But that has created a saturation of DJs in the industry today, which means now.
Do you have a background in economics at all? Did you go to school for?
No, I went to school for it was music.
Oh, interesting. But you understand. You have a deep understanding. Economists call these things barriers to entry. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. Well, but I'm into it's definitely more than I love marketing. I love reading. I'm a science guy, physics. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know enough about chemistry, but you can use these principles in all these different disciplines to apply it to what you're doing. There's a great book by, are you familiar with Farnham Street?
Yes.
Yes. So I have like all the mental model books by Shane
Yeah.
Parrish. Like
Shane
it's
Parrish,
really
yeah.
good stuff. He's amazing. But
Sure.
the flip side of technology democratizing the game
It
has
takes
been
the
that.
passion really out. I mean, there's people that say they're passionate about music, but to me, to be passionate, you have to spend the hundreds of hours like guys like me and you
Yeah,
did, right?
absolutely.
That's real passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's commoditized what we do. So
Yes.
that's what makes it harder for us. And that also makes it harder in the market for a lot of DJs to make the money that they would love to make. But at the same time, and this is a question I'd love to get your take on, the whole thing around like, what's your worth, right? So
Right.
that's an interesting question that I've never really landed on a solid answer. I have an idea around it, but it's a hard, because people are like, you got to charge what you're worth. Well, if you put you and if like, I'm trying to think about how to phrase this, but if I put a new DJ next to me and that new DJ is like, I charge $1,000 and I'm saying I charge, if we both charge $1,000, well, are we worth the same thing? I don't think so, right? Our resumes are different.
But now expectations have changed.
Yeah.
It's the goalposts are constantly moving.
Yes.
And I'll put it to you like this. Create yourself a category of one. Be unique as you can.
Bingo.
The more unique you are, the more in demand you'll be. And like you said, have your reputation and be unique. And all of a sudden, people are going to come to you.
Yes.
Right? Because and once you get known, like for me, it's concerts, right? When they tap me to, because my reputation is on the very, very top levels of this business now. And when they need a DJ, they go to me because they know I study every act. What you see me play for the Backstreet Boys is entirely different from what you see me play for Ice Cube. And even,
Right.
People think rapper, Flow Rider, and Ice Cube. My sets were like 90% different.
Yes, as they should be.
Yeah. So it really provides me, and I'm so passionate, and these artists see that, and because ultimately the promoter, it's usually Live Nation or whomever it is, they have to sell me to the artist.
Totally.
Right. So they have to say, hey, we want to bring, so the artist has to approve of me. And 9 times out of 10, they know somebody, or they got this, or they got, do you know what I mean? They just got their own DJ that they say, well, why don't you just bring it? But they go, well, we bring this guy because this, and this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they still got to pay me. Now talk about competition. How many people would open for these names for free or even pay to be there? Right. So you've really got to be a category of one. And it's through everything we've just talked about today.
Absolutely. Let's dig into that a little deeper, right? So category of one, somebody might hear that and be like, what? How can I be that? I would say, like, when I started, it was all about underground hip hop.
Yes.
That was my lane. Forget jiggy music. I'm not playing anything commercial. I didn't want to. I didn't care. I was forced to care once I started playing clubs, but that experience in learning underground music, getting really good at that, really sharpened my skill set about how to mix, listening to blends, programming, et cetera, et cetera. And once I got good at that, then I was able to take that skill set and expand it into something else. But I started with one specific niche. So what would that mean for an upcoming DJ? Maybe that means you just want to do clubs and you work clubs, right? Or like one of the things that I have done literally right before the pandemic hit was start a DJ coaching program. And I had my first cohort, and one of the DJs in that cohort said, I just want to do weddings. He didn't want to do clubs, didn't want to do anything else. He was like, I want to zone in on weddings. I enjoy doing it. I said, great. We built his plan, developed his plan. And in the span of 18 months, he went from booking weddings at like 800. No, I'm sorry. And after our first call together, he went from booking weddings from like $800,000 to $2,000. But in the span of 18 months, he went from like figuring it out to now making over 6 figures a year. And he's like, his numbers are only going up because now he's seeing the game and understanding new things and adding services to his stuff. So he's expanded and like doing quite well for himself, but he was number one in his niche for weddings, right? He like just zoned in on that. So if you want to be the leader's the wrong word, but if you want to be like the one
at the forefront,
yes, pick one thing and go all in on it, and then
but
things will happen.
uniquely to that is like, so even as a wedding DJ, you want to acquire like a variety of really strong. It's there's no one skill set.
No.
Right. So when I say be a category of one, I'm a category of one because I can play at Blake Shelton's club here in Vegas, his rooftop country bar.
Yep.
And then I can go do a date with Ice Cube in Seattle.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that makes me very unique in that, someone can hire me, and I'll finish with this too. One of the simplest things a DJ can do is be professional and punctual.
Oh my God. We'll get into that. But I do want to say to your point of being uniquely one, it was time that allowed you to do that. Not time because your reputation grew, time because you took the time to learn this style, to learn that style, to learn that style. So now you're super
really
versatile.
Separated me from the typical person now who it's so easy to learn how to DJ, but that paradoxically makes them not really branch out, right?
Exactly. And it's the same with me. Like I had to figure out 80s because they're like, oh, you're doing this party for Intel. They don't want hip hop at all. They just want like 80s and Pitbull. And I was like, okay, just chop off my arm.
Right.
Like, okay. But I could do it, right? So it's because of the experience.
You became an extraordinary DJ in that process by having that attitude. Which would probably make you an incredible festival DJ. Do you know what I mean? That's the paradox here.
Yes. Great point.
Young people don't see is that it's these skills you learn from Intel going, no hip hop, that makes you go, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
To go, oh, wow, I did it. To that. So now if someone goes, hey, do you want to play at EDC? You'd smash it. You'd be like, who is that guy? Oh man, he did my Intel party.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And it's I had a point that it was doing that, like you said, adds to the repertoire. Oh, I lost my point. What was I going to say?
It's okay.
It was a carry on to
oh God, man, sorry.
No, it's cool. We did that. Oh, weddings. I used to hate doing weddings because I didn't get into it to do
cool. I remember I was too cool for weddings.
Yeah, we have it's like, man, it's not why.
Yeah.
But I've had a reframe around it. And the one reframe that really changed it for me was it forced me to get good at rocking weddings, which is a totally different skill set from rocking a club, which has made me way more comfortable in being
a way better club DJ, paradoxically, in the process.
Facts, man. You nailed it. There's a paradox to it. Like we think that these two things don't intersect, but they actually have a lot of intersection.
There's synergy to them.
Big time. And so I was like, oh, this is actually a really good thing. So I would do more weddings because every couple is different. This couple wants like hip hop R&B, but that couple may just want like indie rock and pop. So you have to deliver. You have to do a good job. And that will carry forward because if you crush it there, the venue staff pays attention. The wedding coordinator pays attention, right? So again, coming back to you live and die by your last gig, you do one good job somewhere and then it multiplies. So that's the only secret.
And that's more powerful than 50,000 views on your video on TikTok.
Yeah. So may get you in the door. So these things may get you in the door. We're not saying like don't try to get more of a TikTok following or a social media following.
It's just but worry about these other skills as well.
Yeah.
That you're overlooking because everybody's talking about these things on social media. They're saying do more social media. When the answer is you need all of it. You do need. I'm a big believer in social media. So this talk is going on social media, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, yours is so full of wisdom, man. Like, we're gonna have to put your info because I think if you're a young DJ or if you're serious about your career, you need to talk to Shammy Dee. Like this guy he's going to get your career to where you want to go. And even if it's like wanting to play festivals, you'll be able to make more money and be a better festival DJ by applying these principles.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
The thing is, and I feel like you may have a similar experience. When we were coming up, we didn't have a mentor or somebody telling us, you might want to do this. Don't do that. Put this in, have a contract, make sure you look at this. Are you filming yourself? Are you doing this? Are you doing
Right.
no guidance, like literal trial and error, as a lot of veteran DJs who's been at this for over 15, 20 years, we've all had to go through that to a large degree.
Right.
Mentorship is the way to quickly cut through that, right? So
to know where you're making mistakes and where you should devote your time, even if it doesn't look like anything's happening, right?
Yeah. So I'd love to give something to your audience that's listening.
Sure.
If they DM me on Instagram and message me business plan, I will send you an outline of like, here's the foundational steps you need. Whether you're a festival DJ, whether you're a career wedding DJ, whatever DJ you want to be, every business follows the same principles. You have to have people know about you. You have to get clients, and then you want to get repeat clients. And these three areas are the things that we all need to work on in order to not just get a clientele, but grow our clientele at the same time.
Sure.
So I'm happy to hook up your listeners
on
the house, man. On the house.
What a way to, I think, man, we've been talking, like we could probably talk another 2 hours.
We could.
You're an interesting guy. And I hope you come to Vegas, man. Like, just hit me up. Let me know.
Please, yeah. And when you come to LA, holler at me, man. We'll go hang.
So cool having you on the show, man.
Thank you. And we didn't even talk science, man. Like, we didn't talk about David Deutsch or like.
Oh, right? Man. I got those books right now. I don't know if you can see them on here. Let's see. This is my bookshelf right there.
Yes.
And there. You know, everyone loves to show books when they talk on podcasts, right?
Yeah, they do.
And the funny thing is, I'm the one that's actually reading these books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
So I want people to tune in. I want to, 2025 for me is about mental, physical, spiritual fitness, and music is a huge, huge part of that. So this is my goal. I really want to put out a podcast a week, maybe more.
Love it.
And we're gonna have to do this again, man.
I'm down. I would love to interview you. I know I want to start up a podcast, so I would love to have you on. And
when you send out your email, just we'll tell people, hey, you can watch my conversation.
Yeah, definitely, man. It was so good. Thank you again for having me on. I hope that your listeners got a lot out of this, and happy to also ask, if they want to DM and ask questions, like a little guidance can go a long way. I wish I had that when I was coming up. And there's so many things, like we can get into so many things, man, but we don't have the time, unfortunately. But happy to help however I can.